Hey guys, Casual Crono here. Next in my character development series is Iphi, a very complex character who can be used a great number of ways. Iphi, if you go to her ability board, she's a staff user, she likes spicy foods, she's a gun user, fire, and shade user. So those are her personality traits that we can use to buff her up or support her. Her skills: she has the Liliac series, which basically will put poison and pain on all enemies. It is persistent, which means it will never go away unless under very special circumstances. It does not it ignores target resistance. So if she casts it, they will get poison and pain, no questions asked. It reduces their power, their intellect, and their speed and type resistance for 3 turns. Depending on which one you use, it depends on how much the resistance goes down. And then, if she has what's called Seances stacked on her, the debuff effect and the turn duration can increase. So she could reduce enemies down by 50% and up to 6 turns, depending on how many Seances she has. And we'll get into Seances in a moment. Other skills: she has Hypnophobia. It's a preemptive fire attack on all enemies. It's very small. If you cast on the very first turn of battle, the strength increases and it heals all party members. Iphi is the only character in the game currently, as of April 2024, that can deploy Shade Stance. When she does this, all party members increase their magic damage based on their MP value for 5 turns. Secondly, if they don't have a blood contract, and it has to be if no characters have a blood contract, everyone gets a blood contract again. When you start the fight, each of the frontline characters automatically gets 1 blood contract. If they get killed, or if he chooses to kill them, then they use up the blood contract, and if he gets a Seance stack. That's how those Seance stacks occur. And that's why if you have Iphi in the front row and sometimes some other character gets killed, you'll see them revive. That's what's going on. So the blood contract puts Lunatic, Risk Taker, on the character, which means they will do more damage. Any attacks that hit all allies hit the character with the blood contract. In exchange, they take double damage, and by default, it goes to the rightmost character. You'll notice in a lot of my videos, I have the tank in the rightmost position. So that's the reason why. If he's in the team, the rightmost character takes all the damage. And then it says if the ally takes damage that would knock them out, it consumes a blood contract, restores their hit points, restores their statuses. If you are already in Shade Stance and you cast it again, all party members' attacks become shade attacks for 1 turn. She also has Heralania, which can restore all statuses. It grants a shield to her, which can go up to 5,000 depending on how much damage people have taken. She has Nocturnal Procession, which is one of the skills I love to use. The party's power, intellect, and speed all gets buffed by 50% at least. If she has Seances, they get buffed even more. And it provides Cyclone Wind immunity. What that does is, those attacks that knock a character into the back row, Cyclone Wind immunity for 1 time prevents that from happening. It uses it up, so if it gets used up, you have to cast Nocturnal Procession again to make sure they don't get knocked in the back row. And then she has her 1 attack, which is a shade type attack. It does it 3 times, it's extra large, it ignores target defenses, guaranteed critical strength, and if she has Seance stacks, it's even more powerful. And when she has 3 Seance stacks, it also puts on Elemental Break Shade to all enemies 3 times. So that's the one that you spam during like AF bars and so forth, and it's pretty much her 1 attack skill. Yes, Hypnophobia is technically an attack skill, but it's small, it's only 1 attack, and it's only strong, really strong on the first turn of battle. So let's explore these skills and this whole Risk Taker ability, lunatic stuff, seances, blood contracts, etc., because she's kind of a complicated character. First, I'd like to briefly look at Iphi as a farming character. Iphi has one skill, Hypnophobia. It's a preemptive fire attack on all enemies, and on the very first turn of battle, its strength is increased and it heals all party members. You might think, oh, it's a small attack, it's not going to do that much damage. If you put grasta on Iphi, that improves her damage, your typical pain and poison grastas, your bullseye upgrades and so forth. As long as you have a pain setter, it can do a pretty decent amount of damage. If you have Suzette Stellar Awakened, she automatically puts pain on all enemies at the start of the fight, even before you enter commands. There are other characters that do this. One of Izuka's forms does it, and others. So if you get a character like that, farming becomes pretty simple. So here we have a group of enemies. They already have pain poison on them thanks to Suzette. If I cast Hypnophobia and click attack, she attacks them all, they die, team lives, and you now have a farmer. So Iphi can be good for farming. It does use up a little bit of MP, magic power, so over time you will need to go and restore your mana. But aside from that, depending on what grasta you give her, what your accompanying team is like, she can go around and farm pretty easily. That's not her main use, just more of an FYI. A lot of people don't see her as a farmer, but she can do the job if you happen to get her. But let's move on to how she's normally used, which is either support or damage. To showcase her support, she has several passive abilities. Simply by being in the front row, she can buff the rest of the team. I'm going to show you an example of that. Here we have Flammopolis. It doesn't really matter what she's geared with. We're going to see what kind of damage she does all by herself. Now on the very first turn, Flammopolis automatically puts a break on an enemy, so whatever damage she does on the first turn will be doubled. She does Neptune, 4 million damage. There's no more break, so another Neptune should do about half as much. Sure enough, about 2 million in damage. Third turn, should be another 2 million-ish. Fourth turn, should be another 2 million-ish, and she gets stunned. And the fifth turn, she's stunned. So in 5 turns, all by herself, she did about 10 million in damage. Not bad, you go Flammopolis. Now what we're going to do is put Iphi in the team. And we're not going to have Iphi cast anything. Well, technically we're going to have her cast one thing, but it's not going to help. I just want to showcase what it's like having Iphi on the team. One of Iphi's passive skills is that she basically puts Risk Taker on all frontline characters. And what Risk Taker does is that it improves their damage by 70%. It also causes them to take some amount of damage when they attack. Well, technically when they do any type of move, but... So now, if he's in the front row, nothing else has changed. We're going to cast Heralania. It basically restores statuses and creates a shield, so it does not buff Flammopolis, it does not debuff the enemy, it does not do anything. It's kind of a neutral ability. So that way Flammopolis is doing exactly what she did before with the same gear and everything. The only difference is now, if you check her status, you'll notice that she has the Risk Taker effect. So Neptune now does 6.7 million. Again, we're going to cast Heralania, so we don't interfere with any buffs, debuffs, anything. There's no break. 3.3 million. You may also notice that Flammopolis is losing health. She's taking damage every turn. That's kind of the trade-off. She does more damage, but she actually starts getting hurt herself. She'll never actually kill herself. It's always 20% of whatever her current health is. So even if she gets down to 1 health, 20% of 1 health would only be 0.2, and it rounds up so it stays at 1 health. So here's Turn number 4, another Neptune. And now she is stunned. And Herlani again. So last time when she was by herself she did 10 million. This time she did very close to 17 million. And sure enough, that's about that 70% boost. So simply by having Iphi in the team, all characters will do 70% more damage. The trade-off, they lose health. Now what I'd like to do is go ahead and cast a few spells. So let's go back to the Flammopolis team. Let's restore some health and MP. And let's see, let's put on Necrophilia, check. So again, Flammopolis has not changed. There's no sidekicks helping out. It's just her and Iphi. Flammopolis is equipped with 1 pain and 1 poison grasta. Iphi has the ability to put pain and poison on enemies. With the Liliac series, the highest one being Rosa Liliac. It's preemptive, so it goes first, and it also decreases power, intellect, speed, and type resistance. Type resistance being like your water damage, thunder damage, crystal, magic type attacks. So we're going to cast Rosa Liliac, and we're going to see what her Neptune does now. Remember, this is with 1 pain and 1 poison grasta equipped. 15 million on the very first hit. We're going to do 1 more Neptune now that the break is not there. We're just going to do Rosa Liliac again to keep it the same. And about half as much, 7.8 million in damage. The next spell we're going to cast is Nocturnal Procession. It improves the party's power, intellect, and speed by 50% for 3 turns. It also gives them Cyclone Wind immunity, which is where if an enemy tries to knock them into the back row, it stops that 1 time. So we're going to cast Neptune again, this time with a 50% intellect buff. You saw 7.8 million was the damage on turn 2. And it's about 7.6 now. And now she's been buffed, and we're going to see what the Neptune damage is this time. We're going to go back and just cast Rosa Liliac so nothing else interferes. 11.9 million, almost 12 million damage. And now she's stunned, and we're just going to go ahead and finish up the fight. But for characters with the Pain Poison Grasta, there you go, 42 million this time around. For characters with the Pain Poison Grasta, if he can set Pain and Poison, the Pain and Poison stays the entire fight, it's persistent. And with her Nocturnal Procession buff, she can buff the team and make them do even more damage. So those are 2 skills that she does. Nocturnal Procession and Rosa Liliac. I use them all the time in my super boss fights. I usually do Rosa Liliac on turn number 1 and Nocturnal Procession usually on turn number 2. So let's talk now about a few more characteristics of Iphi. When you're reading Iphi's skills, the word Seance appears in a bunch of them based on number of stacked seances. There's Seance again. For example, Nocturnal Procession, the skill that you just saw, the buff effect and how long the buff lasts is actually increased based on the number of stacked seances. So max times 2, which means you could improve the party's power by 100%, and it would last for 6 turns. So I'm like, so what's this Seance thing, Crono? Okay, we're going to show you Seance now. This time I have a different team prepped up. I have Mariel, and Mistrari, and Pry. When Iphi is in the front row, every single character gets that Lunatic ability. So if I check it, so there's Risk Taker, on Mariel, there's Risk Taker on Mistrari, and Risk Taker on Pry. So all of them are doing extra damage. Yay! It also says in the event an ally takes damage that would knock them out, it consumes the blood contract. That's the skill or item, whatever you want to call it, that gives them this lunatic risk taker effect. It's this little orange circle thing. So if a character gets knocked out, they actually revive and they restore all statuses. Iphi can actually knock them out by using her lunatic. So if I use lunatic, I can choose a character. So let's go ahead and get someone praying. Let's get someone singing. And let's have Pry just do Pry things. And we'll go ahead and Rosa Liliac, because that's usually what I would do on turn 1 anyway.
Alakazam! I feel it in my soul.
So right now we see praying going on, and we see singing going on. If you have a singer, you can't give them commands until they're done with their song, or until they're like stunned, or turned to stone, frozen, any status, abilities that would, render them incapacitated. And prayers continue until they take damage. Iphi, when you choose Lunatic, you basically are saying, I am going to sacrifice one of these people. So let's sacrifice Mariel. And let's have her attack, and let's have Pry continue to do Pry things. So on this turn, you're going to see her sacrifice Mariel. It happens immediately, but Mariel revives. Mariel continues to do whatever command I told her to do, and even though she took damage, she continues to pray. Remember that normally, characters that pray, when they take damage, the prayer stops. Alright, so now she's lunaticked, which means she can do more damage and all that, fun stuff that comes with lunatic. And her first skill has turned to blood ritual. So I could target another character. So this time, let's target the singer. We'll go ahead and continue attacking, and Pray will do Pray things. So now she just sacrificed the singer. The singer comes back to life, and she is continuing to sing. Each time Iphi sacrifices a character, she gains a Seance stack. And in fact, if we check her, you'll see that she has 2 stacks right now. However, that does mean if some monster or boss attacked Mariel or Mistrari at this point, then they would actually be killed for real and they would not revive. So let's have Pry do Pry things. Let's blood ritual Pry. She'll attack again, and he'll, let's see, yeah. Now Pry comes back to life.
Bless your soul.
Cut it out. Shoo!
Now, none of the front row characters have that blood contract anymore. If I check her status, I've stacked the Seance 3 times, and down here you'll see the little icon, the little blue circle with the number 3 right there. So she has the maximum number of Seance stacks. That's how you get Seance stacks. And that's how now, for example, if I cast Nocturnal Procession on this turn, all those buffs would be doubled to 100%, and it would last for 6 turns instead of 3. Rosa Liliac, instead of reducing power, intellect, speed by 35%, now if I cast it, the enemy would be debuffed by 50% on everything. So that's how you get Seance stacks. However, the front row characters are now vulnerable. They've lost their blood contract, they're not doing as much damage. However, if I cast Shade Stance, one of the things it says near the top there, I can't move the mouse up or else it goes away, but it says if no characters are under blood contract, all party members enter blood contract again. So if I cast Shade Zone right now, all three characters will gain back their blood contract, and all three would gain back the ability to revive again. So let's just finish this up. She's done singing and praying, so... And let's have him do Noble Flames, why not? So when she casts Shade Zone, we're in Shade Zone now, they all have the blood contract again. You notice they're taking damage again when they attack, and if something tries to kill them, they will revive again. So that is how you gain Seance Stacks with Iphi. Another interesting feature about Iphi is that she can convert everyone's attack power or attack skills to Shade. So first turn, Rosa Liliac. We'll just have her cast some spells, prayers, prile, pray, why not?
Alakazam! Lead away.
Bless your soul.
So everything looks relatively normal right now. We are going to cast Shade Zone. And I'm not going to pronounce that right. Walpurgis, Noct? Whatever. Might just say Noct. I can pronounce that part of it anyway. So what that does, it's going to deploy Shade Stance. All magic damage will increase based on their MP value. So if you have a team of magic users, then that will increase their damage as well. As I mentioned earlier, any characters that don't have blood contract, you have to run out of blood contract entirely. So if Mariel still has blood contract but no one else does, and you cast Noct, then Mariel will still be the only one with blood contract. You have to completely run out of blood contracts in order to restore them. But anyway, if no one has blood contract, everyone will get it again, and everyone will regain their 70% extra damage and all that kind of stuff. However, you'll notice at the very bottom, when you're in Shade Stance, it changes all party members' attack type into Shade until the end of the turn. So let's see that. So let's do an attack, and another, let's do Noble Flames. Okay. You'll notice when the words appear, Crystal Rain, there's a crystal symbol, Noble Flames had a little fire symbol next to it. It looked red, it looked whitish for crystal. We're in Shade Zone, and Noct is preemptive, so it will go first. As long as you don't have too many other preemptive things going on, you will now notice the Noble Flame symbol, the Crystal Rain symbol, the Ala Aurea symbol should all have the Shade form. See, there's Shade, Shade, Shade. So for that turn only, they're doing Shade attacks now instead of Crystal and Fire attacks. And if we do it on the very next turn, let's have her Nocturnal Procession it, why not? They go back to their original forms. There's 2 Crystal and there's a Fire attack. So for that turn only, all characters convert to Shade, which can be helpful for some bosses. If you have a boss that's weak to Shade, you can temporarily make the entire team Shade users. And let's go ahead and finish this up. But I wanted to feature that. There are a few boss fights. I know the Sophie ARX fight or whatever has made use of this particular technique because, one enemy might take one type of damage, let's say Crystal. So for one turn the Crystal users attack, then you cast Noct while under Shade Zone, and then everyone Shade attacks, and then you can use the Shade attack on the other enemy that's weak to Shade, and then it runs out, and then you go back to doing Crystal attacks, and so forth. So if you need to kind of alternate between one elemental type and Shade types, you can actually use Noct to do that a couple of times. Or, well, technically as many times as you want. Let's go ahead and finish up this dummy fight and move on to another feature of Iphi's. To showcase another one of Iphi's skills, so to speak, I'm going to bring in the Mysterious Chaos Ogre. A lot of boss monsters in this game have a barrier, as you just saw him form. And we wait while everything happens. Alright. So if you check the status, you'll see that it has a barrier, a 35 stack barrier. And sure enough, right there, 35 stacks. There are some characters in the game that have barrier-piercing moves. If you have watched my channel for a while, those are the characters I tend to favor and build around. Alma, for example, Minalka, Sesta, let me think, Miu ES has one, and so forth. But most characters don't. You have to attack this boss 35 times before the barrier breaks, and then you can start doing damage. However, when you consume, when I use Lunatic, and when you sacrifice a character for one turn, they gain barrier piercing. And actually it's not for one turn, it's for one move. So if you have a character that does 6 attacks, the first attack will barrier pierce. The other 5, I think, will stop, if I remember correctly. So I'm going to sacrifice Flammopolis, and then she is going to Neptune the enemy. Normally, the stacks, let's go ahead and do a Magic Fate stance, and let's Overwhelm so we don't affect anything else. So here on turn 1, you're going to see her sacrifice Flammopolis. Flammopolis will revive, and then she will attack with Neptune and hurt the boss monster, despite the fact that it has a barrier. Now, when you sacrifice a character and revive them, they do lose that Lunatic ability that comes with the blood contract, so she will be noticeably weaker. There's a sacrifice, she's revived, she Neptunes, and you'll see that the enemy took damage despite having a barrier. So, I did not set up this team to win this fight by any stretch of the imagination. So, I just wanted to show off how that would work. In fact, this is actually a good opportunity. When Iphi dies, you obviously can't sacrifice anyone again, and there's no one to perform the seance, so even if Alter Xion gets killed now, he won't revive. You'll notice that Radius AS did not revive, even though she had a blood contract on her, and that was because Iphi is already knocked out of the fight. So, and at this point, if I cast Neptune again, it will not do any damage, because that was only for one move.
Over the opponent.
As I said, I wanted to use this as an example. If you don't have a barrier-piercing character, you can create a barrier-piercing character temporarily using Iphi. Now that you've seen several abilities in action, let's go ahead and form a team around her. For free characters, and pseudo-free characters, you know, the easy-to-get ones, I came up with this. Don't know if this is the most perfect free team, but I wanted to showcase Iphi as a damage dealer first. We're going to do damage dealing, then we're going to do support. So Iphi is a spicy lover, a gun user, fire and shade and staff user. As far as grasta, whoever is your main DPS person, you want the power of pain or power of poison grastas. So I have Power of Pain with Bullseye, Power of Pain with MP consumption, and Power of Pain with Adversity. The Adversity one's not, you know, the tried and true one. In fact, it's not going to come into effect because we're going to do one training dummy. But those are the 3 grasta that I've given her. As far as gear, since this is a free team, I tried to select gear that most people could have access to. I have a prismatic rod and the rainbow ring, which gives her a 70% magical crit rate and some extra speed. The rainbow ring has a crit rate of 30%, but does not say magical crit rate, so I don't think that's helping her. I looked up on the wiki and it still didn't say anything about magical critical rate, so I think all she has is 70%. I just chose the rainbow ring because it's paired with the prismatic rod. came from the same thing. For the badge, I chose an int 30 badge and a type attack 10% Fallen Wings badge. You could just give her intellect, 35 intellect badge would be fine, and so forth. So that's how she's geared with, mid-game level gear. The skills are Icrophilia, Nocturnal Procession, Rosa Liliac, and Noct. For her supporting cast, I chose Shade characters, Curio, Nona, and Harley. Curio has Transcendent Glory, which is a Shade type attack, but it also improves the power of all party members and intellect by 35%. And when there's a type zone, like the Shade zone, all Shade type attacks will go up by 50%. So by using that one skill, Iphi's intelligence will increase, and her Shade attacks will increase. Deathstroke doesn't really help Iphi too much. It reduces physical resistance, and Steadfast Melody is just a way to heal. Because remember, when characters make moves with Iphi around, they're going to take damage. As far as his grasta, I just had Power of Agonies and Pains as well. Nona, it could really be either style. I just have her main style right now. She has the Lollipopper, which you can get from Toto's. You have to collect items and go to the blacksmith and upgrade it. It happens to be upgraded by the Wandering Blacksmith as well, so it's actually giving her a lot more health than the normal Lollipopper would, but it's still a relatively easy to get item. She has her personal ring, the Forget-Me-Not, and she has a stats badge, which increases all of her stats by 20. That's because one of Nona's abilities, she can give a portion of her stats to another character, so the more stats I can give her, the more she can buff another character. As far as skills, she has a Shade attack called Sanzion? Not quite sure. She has Cartillo Paradiso, which reduces damage taken, improves type attacks, which would include Shade attacks by 30% for one single move, and she gains her personal stacking thing. And then I also have Pregaria, which heals all party members. Again, I wanted to have characters that were able to heal back some of the damage that Iphi is producing. So that's Nona. Oh, her grasta. Since she's more support instead of damage, I usually give my support characters things that give additional hit points. So she has 600 hit points from one, she has 300 hit points from another. I just didn't bother giving it an HP ore. And she can hold the Enhance if Max HP Shade grasta, which improves all damage by 10% when you're at max health. Now with Iphi around, you're rarely at max health, but if one of the healing characters cast a heal ability and then someone else attacked, then they would be at max health, so that's kind of there more just on the offhand chance. And then Harley. She has Void Staff, Plasma Ring, and Int Badge. Again, kind of mid-game gear. Void Staff probably is the hardest of the three to get, but it has a magical critical rate of 100% and improves type attack. As far as skills, she has some Shade skills. She has Lunar Breaker, which does just general Shade magic attacks. She has Lunar Cut, which reduces Shade type resistance, which would make Iphi's damage even stronger. And then she has Lunar Ruin, which is a fire type attack, but it stacks some power levels on Harl, and she uses those power levels to increase damage or increase debuff effects. So if I cast Lunar Ruin first, that would give her 2 power levels, and if I cast Lunar Cut, for example, that 35% would go up a little bit based on how many power levels she has stacked. So the maximum it could do would be double, which means I could reduce Shade resistance by 70% once I have a maxed level of power levels. Grasta-wise, since she does damage, I have some power of poisons on her. So let's look at the back row characters. As I mentioned at the start, she's a spicy lover and gun user. So I want to try and find characters that are spicy lovers or gun users. Palm, who is a pretty easy character to get, she's actually the character that I've drawn the most. She has 170 light points, and I never have used any guiding light on her. That's how often I've gotten her. But Palm, grasta-wise, she is a gun user. So simply by her having this equipped, she is buffing Iphi by 25%. And then enhance at low HP staff. Iphi automatically causes characters to do damage to themselves. So when they are at 80% or lower, their damage increases. And then she also, since she's also a staff user, I can equip her with Dark Shade Staff, which improves all shade type attacks by 30%. So she is buffing Iphi's attack by 30% as well. The other character I threw in was Miranda, and that is because Miranda happens to be a spicy lover. I don't have it upgraded, so it's actually not helping in this example. I don't really want to waste the Jadeites just to upgrade, but that is an example of how you can improve Iphi's damage even further. And then I also have Power of Offense equipped. It's one of the ones that you get from Sebastia's lab. Not everyone has it. It's one of the harder ones to get, but if you had it, as long as you're in Shade Stance, all party damage increases by 50%. And then I didn't really have a good third one to give her, so I just didn't give her anything. There are other characters, like I'm sure I could find other harder to get characters that I could make use of that third slot, but again, this is a relatively free team or easy to get team. Along those lines, free sidekicks. We have Iridian and Kurobo. Kurobo will reduce enemies' power and intellect by 25% if they take fire damage. And if you remember, Harl has one fire attack, Lunar Ruin, and she will be casting it because it gives her power levels. So once I cast that, the enemy will automatically, for the rest of the fight, have a reduction of power and intellect, which will make it a little bit easier for this team to survive. The other character I have is Iridian. Iridian has 3 different forms, if you've unlocked all 3. And one of the forms is a heal type form. It heals all party members, restores mana a little bit, and Iridian does a wind attack. And his aura is when an enemy takes wind damage, their power and intellect decrease by 10%. So his own auto skill should activate his aura as well. So again, he keeps the team alive a little bit, he restores mana a little bit, and he makes it a little easier for the team to survive hits. So let's see this team in action on the test dummy.
Starting to feel like an adventure.
So we can go ahead and cast Shade Zone on the first turn, or you could cast Rosa Liliac. We can do Transient Glory, because that lasts for 5 turns. For Nona, we can go ahead and start stacking Signalis. In her case, we can go ahead and activate Kurobo's aura by using Lunar Ruin.
There you are.
So if we check the status of the dummy, we have the auras in effect, power and intellect down by 10, power and intellect down by 25. We can cast Rosa Liliac to put pain. Let's go ahead and let's reduce physical resistance just for fun. We can go ahead and gain another Signali. And we can go ahead and Lunar Cut and reduce shade resistance. We could do another Lunar Ruin and stack more power levels as well. So in this case, let's go ahead and do another Lunar Ruin.
There you are.
So 3 turns left. Harl has, looks like 6 stacks. Yep, power level 6 out of 12. We have the Pain Poison going, we have the Shade Zone going. So now we could Nocturnal Procession and buff up the team. We could go ahead and cast pretty much anything at this point. Let's just Transient Glory again, why not? Let's go ahead and get another Signali. And let's go ahead and stack up another 2. Actually, why don't we use Lunar Cut now and go ahead and reduce Shade Resistance on the enemy.
There you are.
With 2 turns left, we now could start casting Icrophilia. She's been buffed, the enemy has Pain, we have Shade Zone going. I could Lunatic and cast an even stronger Icrophilia on the last turn, so it's kind of your choice, but we can go ahead and let's Transient Glory again. Now we can start consuming Signalis, and we can cast Lunar Breaker. And let's take a look and see what kind of damage Iphi does. She does somewhere around the 8 million mark per hit. So final turn, why don't we go ahead and blow the AF bar and have some fun. We'll just spam Icrophilia, we'll spam Transient Glory, Sanzione, and Lunar Breaker. Harl's case, if you're not familiar with her, she still keeps her stacks, they don't get consumed, so her power level is still 6 out of 12. So let's see how much damage we can do in the AF bar. I could even work in another Walpurgisnacht during right now, and if you had characters that were not casting shade attacks, they would start doing shade attacks right now. That would extend the length of the AF bar.
Leave your dreams in my hands.
So we did 315 million on the test dummy with basically free characters. You'll notice 3 of them, their health has decreased a lot during that AF bar and their previous attacks. So do keep that in mind. When Iphi's around, the rest of the team is a bit like a glass cannon. So you can see they're a little less than half health actually after all those attacks. But for a free team, being able to knock out 315 million plus whatever damage they did before the AF bar, not too bad. Why don't we give this team a spin? To test out this team, let's try the good old Dragon God boss. It is resistant to shade, so we'll see how that affects things. It has 1 HP stopper at 50%. So we are going to Pain and Poison. We're going to go ahead and improve physical resistance of the team. We're going to go ahead and give the team a barrier, and which reduces damage. And we are going to go ahead, even though it's null, we're going to cast Lunar Ruin right away to get Kurobo's aura going.
There you are.
Don't push yourself.
Cut it out. Shoo.
So after the first turn, the boss has both auras in effect, making it weaker. We've reduced its power, intellect, and speed with Rosa Liliac. And we've also reduced its speed and type by Deathstroke. Actually, we haven't cast Deathstroke yet. That was a physical resistance of this. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and cast... let's go ahead and do Deathstroke this turn. We're going to cast Shade Zone. We're going to do Lunar Cut to reduce shade resistance. And we are going to go ahead and continue stacking Signales.
There you are.
Here on the third turn, we're going to go ahead and below the AF bar, we'll do one Nocturnal Procession and then switch over and do Ichorphilia, and the others will just all use their shade attacks. And now that we hit the HP stopper, we were able to work in a few defenses as well. Okay, now that we're on the next turn, we'll go ahead and... I wonder if we should do more power levels. Nah. Let's go ahead and Lunar Breaker. We'll go ahead and heal the team since some characters have some missing health. We'll go ahead and rebuff physical resistance and restore the team. And let's take a look at the debuffs. Rosa Liliac's debuff is about to expire, so we're going to reapply that.
Don't push yourself.
There you are.
Now we'll go ahead and Lunar Breaker. We'll go ahead and stack a Signale and reduce damage. We've improved physical resistance, so we'll go ahead and Transient Glory. And we'll go ahead and Ichorphilia and work back that AF bar.
There you are. Take that.
We'll go ahead and Lunar Cut. See how many Signales do we have? Just one. We'll go ahead and reduce damage, heal again, and we will Ichorphilia.
There you are.
Don't push yourself.
Ooh, slippy.
We now have the AF bar able to be used again. We can see that we have, in Dragon God's case, there's a little extra meter We've used a lot of shade attacks, so shade attacks are really good right now. We are on the last turn of Rosa Liliac's debuff. We do have shade resistance, pain and poison all set up, and the health is pretty low. So now would be a good time to go ahead and blow the AF bar. We will cast Lunar Breaker. We can switch over and cast Sanzione, shade attack. Transient Glory. I could work in one Deathstroke first just to reduce some physical resistance and make him a little bit stronger. And Nocturnal Procession, followed by Icrophilia. So we'll do 2, 3, and then spam a bunch of 1s. 2, 3, spam a bunch of 1s. And there you go, with a relatively free team, the Dragon God goes down. And mind you, that's also with one of the personality grastas not even activated. So Iphi could have been doing 25% more damage. So you've seen Iphi as DPS. Now you're going to see her in the role of support. I'm using one of my super boss teams, my normal Alma, my Jet Xion, Iphi, Radius, with background support Mistrari and Joker mainly to beef up Alma's damage. This time Iphi is geared much differently. Since she is support, I want her health to be pretty high and I want her gear to allow her to survive. She has the Purity Staff, which improves her resistance against status effects, improves her speed, and over time, because I have it upgraded from the Wandering Blacksmith, over time, any damage she takes decreases. I think it's up to 15%. The Subspace Ring gives her an extra bit of health and mana, and the Life Spring Badge improves her health by 1,000. It does decrease her damage by 10%, but I'm not using her as damage anymore, so that part doesn't really bother me at all. Grasta-wise, I want her to survive, so she has 3 Grastas, each one giving her 600 health. They were upgraded with the HP ore. So she has 1800 from Grasta, and it gives her a grand total of over 6,000 health. The rest of the team is Alma, Xion, and Radius, and the sidekicks are Tetra and Guns. If you want to see the gear and Grasta for the rest of them, you can very quickly pause as I scroll through, or you can look at my April 2024 Superboss team. But basically, Alma is doing the main damage. She has a skill, Ether Alchema, which pierces barriers, so I don't need to bother sacrificing her to give her a barrier pierce. So let's see how Iphi contributes to this team against the boss that pretty much destroyed us earlier, the mysterious Chaos Ogre Hard. So on turn 1, we'll deploy Magic Stance. We'll go ahead and we'll just Geist Nebula it, reduce its power a little bit more. Iphi is going to cast Rosa Liliac. It's what I almost always do on the first turn to get Poison and Pain started. And Reyes is going to Overwhelm. Now Iphi's presence is causing the rest of the team to do more damage. In addition, remember that her presence is sending a lot of attacks towards the rightmost character, which in this case is my tank, Radius. So now we're going to Prominence Purge, we're going to beef up, we're going to Paper Tiger, and we are going to Lunatic. you'll notice all of the attacks are going towards Radius, who has the health
Take this.
in order to take them. And that's because of Iphi.
Well met.
Here on turn 3, there's a fire zone started. We can blow the AF bar and replace the fire zone with Magic Fate Zone. We could then spam in Suzaku Encirclement to awaken it. She can spam Ether Alchema, and she's very powerful right now since we just did Lunatic. In Iphi's case, we've cast Pain and Poison, we've cast Nocturnal Procession. We can continue having the Magic Fate's stance zone stay active a little longer by spamming Icrophilia. And in her case, we'll work in one Overwhelm followed by Prominence Purge. She's not going to do all that much in the way of damage. So we're going to blow the AF bar. We're going to do 1, 3, 1, 1. Actually, we'll probably do 1, 2. So 1, 3, 1, 2, and then just spam 1s the rest of the time. 1, 3. Oops. Well, I messed up the order briefly, but it didn't really matter much. You can see the boss is already at the 10% stopper. The boss gets ready for one final attack, restores his barrier. If you did not have a character that could barrier pierce, now would be a good time to sacrifice them and allow them to barrier pierce for one move, and then they could pierce that barrier. In this case, we have an Alma. So we are going to create a break with attack order. She is going to Ether Alchema. I don't think she really needs the break. At this point, you can notice that the power, speed, and int debuffs are wearing out. So if this was a longer fight, you would probably cast Rosa Liliac by now to restore those, and she'll overwhelm. It won't matter, once Ether Alchema goes, the fight's over.
Sublimate.
But that's an example of how Iphi can contribute to a more advanced team. Alma is a magic user, so Iphi's Mind Eye helps beef her up tremendously. And then between Rosa Liliac and Nocturnal Procession, Alma was beefed up even further, and then during the AF bar, Iphi's Icrophilia helped keep it going a little bit since those were magic type attacks. So that's an example of Iphi in a much more advanced team and what kind of a role she plays as support. That's my character development on Iphi, an incredibly versatile character. She's used for farming, she's used for DPS, she's used for support, she keeps people alive, she buffs the team, she debuffs the enemies. She can create barrier piercers out of people who normally couldn't. She is currently the only shade zone setter in the game. She's just one really powerful character, particularly to any magic DPS people. So if you can get your hands on Iphi, she's one of the characters I highly recommend getting to 5-star as soon as possible. She is one of the few characters who I would highly recommend getting to 80 shadow points in order to get that extra skill slot. A lot of my prior videos only had 3 skill slots, and a lot of times I went without Icrophilia. I used her purely as support, and she didn't have any means of attacking. Now that I have 4 skill slots, I can rearrange a little bit. There's a lot of times where I do use Heralania for the status immunity and the shields, but nowadays, more often than not, I like having the option of having a shade zone and magic attacks to go with her buffs and debuffs. So, wonderful character to get. I hope this video helped you to maybe learn a little more about her, how she functions, and how to maybe better use her in your team. Casual Crono, signing out.